let's get started, and if people are late, they're late. So, hi everyone, welcome to another week of Virtual Cafe Oleh. If there are any new people here, just a quick recap of what we do here. This used to be in the Tel Aviv hub once a week, where we went over practical Hebrew. The Hebrew you need every single day, that whether or not you are in Ulpan or not, whether or not you're learning these words or not, it's the words that you use in your everyday life, certainly in your respective countries of origin, and definitely here in Israel. So really to provide you with those practical, that practical vocabulary and insight and context, but also to answer your questions. So we really want to keep this as user-friendly as possible. So as always, number one, Nefesh B'Nefesh will provide you with a recording of this. So if you can't follow along as my speed, and I try to go slow as we have a lot of people at beginners levels here, or if you can't, if you don't know how to take a shot of the screen, you'll get the recording. But number two, if you have any questions along the way, I will pause, take any questions you have, whether about what we're studying here or in general. And also, you can always be in touch through Nefesh B'Nefesh to request specific topics. So with that, get to today's topic. So we had a request. If you remember a few weeks ago, I did a short piece on media literacy, right? Like understanding how and what Israelis read to keep up with the news. And we went through the most popular online news source, Oleh, which was a big hit. We got a lot of positive feedback, both in email and here on the Zoom. So I wanted to go through another website, another multimedia site, to take you through it, to navigate it. We're going to do the same thing where we're going to translate together the top. It's a lot shorter than the previous one, so that's easy. And it's also a really good brief history of Israeli society and culture, but also how to access information on your own, whether it's news. And as you'll see, this is actually more than just a news site. So if you have any questions while I'm talking, the chat window is there. Just press on chat, type in. I'm going to stop at a certain point. If you can't chat for whatever reason, if you can't type, we'll be able to unmute you and let you do that. So with that, I'm going to share screen. Ali, can you enable share screening for me, please? Just 1 minute. Sorry, folks. Ali, can you hear me?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, can you enable screen sharing for me?
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay.
It should work.
See? Yes, thank you.
Well,
Okay, so we're going to go through, I'm going to take you through just like we did the last time, where I took a screenshot. Hopefully the menu will go away in a second. There we go. So I took a screen this morning of the front page of Kan. Kan, as you know in Hebrew, Kaf Aleph Nun means here. It's one of the several words we have for the word here. Kan is the, I guess we can call it the descendant of Channel 1 for many years. Basically, when television was first brought to Israel, when it was the first ever television station based in Israel, it was Channel 1. And from Channel 1 also came a lot of the major radio stations that we know, a lot of the general, it was the source of not only media, but also entertainment, information in general. It was only in the 1990s, very recent, that Israel produced its own commercial TV. So if you want to think of this in English-speaking terms, I can't speak for the Canadians here, so sorry, not sorry, but for Americans, Kan is the PBS of Israel. For the Brits, this is the BBC of Israel. The channel, what used to be known as Channel 2 and Channel 10, which are now called Channel 12 and Channel 13, those are the first network television stations. We know those are network television stations because they're they have commercials. Those are commercial stations. So that's ABC, NBC, Fox, all of that. Kan is, it's more like the BBC than it is PBS, because in addition to the news, it has its own original programming. And one of the words we're going to get to today is one of the new original shows on Kan. Kan produces, in addition to the news, it produces original programming, original documentaries. It also replays shows from around the world. So again, this used to be the only Israeli television station for 3-4 decades until the 90s. So you would turn on Channel 1 and you would see everything from original programming, usually like Israeli musicians, to reruns of The Cosby Show and Seinfeld, to all sorts of things until the 90s, when these channels competed for both original programming that Israel's now known around the world for, including from Kan, but also licensing shows from around the world. So the same thing here. Kan, though, is the original, used to be. Now it's, that's the new name of it. It's a few years old, but it's the direct descendant of that. And so what you see when you go to Kan is a little different than what we saw the other week, when we went to Walla, because Walla is all online. Walla is primarily news, but it's also all sorts of other information. Kan started out as television and radio. And then with the advent of the internet, it moved into the internet. And now with video on demand, it has that too. So Kan took it's a different route. And so Kan is much more multimedia. When people think Kan, they think first television, because it was that classic, the only television station in Israel, and as well as radio. You know very well, those of you who've been here long enough, Israelis love the radio. Part of it is this. The other major radio stations that aren't part of the Kan family, and we're going to go through those together in a little bit, are the army stations. So Galei Tzahal, Gal Galatz, which I'm sure you've all heard of, if not listened to on a regular basis, those are connected to the army. Everything else is connected, most of the other stations are connected through Kan. So here I took a screenshot of the top of the page of Kan, and we're going to go through the actual live page together so you can navigate it on your own. And you see here it's very similar to what we had in Walla, right? Starting from right to left, you see the live button. We'll get there when we take you to the actual page. Chadashot, news, televizia, doesn't need to be translated. Radio, doesn't need to be translated. Digital, again. Podcasting, again. And chinuchit. Chinuchit is educational. There used to be, and there still is, a parallel station to what is Channel 1, and it's all educational programming. It also includes some foreign shows, but it's a lot of educational, it's a lot of child-friendly stuff. But what you see here is the top page, and just like on Walla, the top right has the most pressing news, and we know this not just because it's the top right of the page, which incidentally is a lot like English press, where if you read the New York Times or the Washington Post or any other English language newspaper, usually the top right is the most pressing piece of news, because most people are biased towards the right side because most people are right-handed. I'm not, so I could care less about that bias, but that's just where people mostly lean towards. But here it's different. And also something we learned from Walla, right, is the same exact thing here at Kan. Kan doesn't have nearly as many online readers, but they've copied something from Walla, which is that the top thing is important because it's in the red box. The red box here, as opposed to a synopsis of what we're about to read, reads Shidur Yashir, or Shidur Yashir. You can say the Reish. And as you see here, on the vocabulary that I picked out from this page on the right side, Shidur means broadcast, means a broadcast. It's the noun, or it's the act of broadcasting. And Yashir is direct. So you put the two together, direct broadcast, or another way to say this is live broadcast. Okay, so whenever you see the words Shidur, Yashir, any of these words together or on their own on any of these pages, whether it's here on Kan, whether it's on the other TV stations, whether it's on the radio stations, you know that's the live access. So if I were to click on this during when it was live, because this is just a screenshot, it would take me to the live broadcast, the direct broadcast, the Shidur Yashir, to listen in on this topic. So I'm going to read the headline, and we're going to translate it together, and then a little bit after it, and we're going to translate that together. Okay? So the first part, it says, Galant, colon, Shnat HaLimudim tipatach ב-1 בספטמבר, נקודה. Okay, let's put this together just like we did the other week with Walla. Galant is the name of the Minister of Education, of Sar Chinuch. Sar is a minister, Chinuch is education. Galant, I know automatically because I'm a Hebrew speaker. I'm not native a Hebrew speaker, but anyone who's reading this will understand immediately who they're talking about because I see a picture of a classroom and I see the name Galant. I don't need to make any other inferences because again, this is not for foreign readers. This is for native Hebrew speakers. So they're assuming you know who Galant is. You should know, but Galant is the Minister of Education. Anyways, Galant. And then I see the colon, and we know this again to mean that what's about to follow is either a direct quote or it's a summation of what he has said. And so here's what he says. Shnat halimudim tipatach ב-1 בספטמבר, נקודה. Okay, Shnat halimudim. Shnat is the compound form version of Shana. Shana means year. Limudim, the next word there, means studies or studying, or in this case, academic. Because when you put these two words together, Shnat HaLimudim, we get the term as in English, academic year. Okay? I know this to be Shnat and not any other word. First off, because it's talking about a little bit later, Rishon de September, the 1st of September. But Shnat HaLimudim, when you, we've talked about this before, compound words in Hebrew are used all the time. When we use in compound words, just like in English, are the combination of two or more nouns. So as opposed to a noun and an adjective or noun and a verb, it's two nouns together to create a new concept. So here we put the words for year and studies, or the year and studies together to create the term academic year. So to say academic year in Hebrew is Shnat HaLimudim. And I know it's pronounced Shnat HaLimudim because when the first word in this compound ends in a hey, and it's a feminine word, it ends in hey, so in this case, Shana, it morphs just a bit into, the hey turns into a taf. So the way you would pronounce it is Shnat. So those of you who are religiously observant, and Rosh Hashanah, I can't believe it, is in about 5 weeks' time from now. You know there's many different ways to wish someone Shana Tova, and just as you hear I say it now, right? Shana Tova, that is a noun, Shana, Tova, adjective. And so they agree with each other, right? Shana, Tova is conjugated for feminine. But if I wanted to say something else, if I wanted to say a year of health, right? We all need that. Shnat Briut. Shnat Briut, right? Shana and Briut are both nouns. So to turn that into a compound, Shana turns into Shnat. So Shnat Briut literally translates as a year of health. Okay? You could also, by the way, to say that if you don't like compound words, and I'm sorry, not sorry if you don't, because Israelis love compound words, so you need to get used to it. But you could say Shana Shel Briut, a year of health. It means the exact same thing. In this case, however, Shana Shel Limudim is not the same thing. Shnat HaLimudim is one term, which means the academic year. Okay? So that's a long way to explain how to understand this. So Galant, colon, Shnat HaLimudim, the academic year, Tipatach ב-1 בספטמבר. Okay. If I don't know the word tipatach, I can figure it out from a couple different ways. First off, I'm talking about the academic year, and then blank, and then it says ב-1 בספטמבר, on the 1st of September, right? So the academic year, blank, on the 1st of September. Without knowing anything, without knowing that in Israel, traditionally, the academic year begins on the 1st of September. Most of you from where you're from around the world, your school year, not necessarily you, although you're all young, I'm sure, and weren't just recently in high school or in elementary school, your school year also begins somewhere around the beginning of September. So that, along with the picture here, you can get a sense of what's happening without even knowing what tipatach is, okay? But what is this word tipatach? You probably recognize, some of you may recognize, it's shoresh, it's three-letter root, which in this case is pei taf chet, pei taf chet. So many of you already know words that are related to this, like liftoach, ani poteach et haderet, or pticha, or miftach. All these words have to do something with open. So liftoach is to open. Ani poteach et hadelet, I'm opening the door. Mafteach is a key. So we know it has something to do with opening, okay, without even knowing anything else. Now, what I'm going to tell you is what I've told you before about conjugating verbs. I'm not going to go through conjugation tables here. There's a great website called Pe'alim. I can write it again in the chat box when I'm done. But basically, I look at this word and I know it's the passive form of liftoach. How do I know that? Two ways. One, because it's talking, the beginning of the sentence is Shnat HaLimudim, the academic year. The academic year is not a person. It's not an animal. It's not anything else. It's a concept. And the concept doesn't have many active functions. But a year will be opened. And in this case, I know it's passive, both because it's Shnat HaLimudim is the subject, the academic year is the subject. I also know because of how it's formed. That letter at the beginning, the taf, and then the yud indicate that it's passive in the future tense. Shnat HaLimudim tipatach. This is conjugated for third person, future tense, feminine. Tipatach is she will open. In this case, the school year will open because shana is feminine. So it has to be followed by a feminine verb, a feminine conjugated verb. So tipatach, and that yud, they stick that yud in there to make it clear this is passive. It is, for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, this is called Nipal, and this is the future tense. So this would be translated as the school year will open. In English, we would say the school year will open. In Hebrew, you will say the school year will be opened or will be started on the 1st of September, okay? So that's up until the very last word, right? Galant. Shnat HaLimudim tipatach berishon b'September. Galant says that the academic year will be started or will be opened on the 1st of September, nikuda. Now, nikuda literally means a dot. I am covered in nikudot chen. A nikudat chen is a birthmark or a beauty mark. Nikuda is any kind of dot, but nikuda can also mean period. Both period as like the literal abbreviation, the punctuation, but you also use it just like you see here as a emphasis. This would be the equivalent of English in American English as saying period, which is why I put it in quotation marks, or for the Brits here, full stop. So if you put this all together, now it makes more sense, right? Galant. Shnat HaLimudim, the academic year will begin on the 1st of September, period. Why is he saying? Because any of you who are following the news know that up until a few hours ago, the official plan for reopening schools for the academic year had not been released. And as we're going to read shortly, the subheading, to understand a little bit more, there's been a lot of back and forth about what's going to happen with the school year because of the virus. And so the Minister of Education, who comes from the Likud party, has said the school year will open at the same time as it's supposed to, full stop. Okay, that's the first headline here. And now we read the second part. Okay, in the smaller letters here, you can follow along in the vocab on the right, and we'll translate it again together. Mazkalit Histadrut HaMorim. במשרד הבריאות נרדמו. ההנחיות לא ברורות לנו. זה המתווה שהציג שר החינוך. Okay, so we have two different things going on here. We have first something from Mazkalit or Miskalit Histadrut Amorim, and I'll explain what that is in a second. And then you see a colon, so it's something that's referring to them. And then you see a dot, in the middle, at the end rather, of that second sentence. The dot is just breaking up two subheadings. And the second subheading is that last line here, זה המתווה שהציג שר החינוך. So we're going to translate this all together. Mazkalit or Miskalit Histadrut Hamorim. Okay, so Mazkal. Mazkal, we know, is an abbreviation. Why? Because we've talked about this many times. When you see two apostrophes in the middle of a word or towards the end of a word, we know that that's an abbreviation. In Hebrew, that's how we show an abbreviation. We do not use nikudot, like we just had that word, right? We don't use nikudot. We don't use periods, like in English. We use the first letter of the words in the abbreviation, and then we show it's an abbreviation with those two lines. So in this case, it's mazkal, and we know it's talking about a woman because the original word is mazkal, which we're going to translate, and they added that yod taf at the end, eat. When you see eat at the end of a word, chances are it's referring to someone who's female. So mazkalit, I know whoever this is female, whether or not I know what this is. Mazkal translates to mazkil klali, or in English, general secretary. Okay, general secretary. So for example, the head of the UN in Hebrew is the Mazkal Ha'um. Mazkal, general secretary. Is also another abbreviation standing for the United Nations in Hebrew. So Mazkal, you'll hear a lot. It is the general secretary. This is not a general director, which is a Mankal. That's Minahel Klali. This is a Mazkil Klali. Any of you who grew up in any of the youth movements in Tnurot HaNoar, particularly those from the left, from the more socialist groups, or are affiliated with socialist movements, you know the importance of the word secretary. And understanding Israeli history, you know the importance of socialism and labor Zionism as well. So mazkir is a very important word in Hebrew. And I know this is related to that because of what comes next. This is not just any general secretary. This is the general secretary of Histadrut Hamorim. Histadrut is a modern word in Hebrew that refers to the General Trade Federation, in General Federal Labor Trade Federation. In Israel, as opposed to other countries, all the labor unions are united under one movement called the Histadrut. Within the Histadrut, there's a couple major groups that have their own little bit of autonomy because they're so big. One of them are Histadrut HaMorim. Morim, teachers. So put this all together. The general secretary of the teachers' labor union. Okay, that's how it gets translated. Histadrut is, it doesn't translate directly as a labor union, but understand that's the labor trade federation of all unionized workers in Israel. And within that, there's a couple groups that have some autonomy. One are the Morim of Israel, the public school teachers of Israel, Morim. Okay, so altogether, the general secretary of the teachers union in Israel, colon. So again, we know it's a quote that's related to them. במשרד הבריאות נרדמו, ההנחיות לא ברורות לנו. Okay, במשרד הבריאות, we know this before, right? Misrad is both an office, but it's also a ministry. Briut, I gave that example before about how to wish someone a year of health, is health. So put it together is the health ministry. Misrad HaBriut, that's another compound word, by the way. The first word doesn't change because it's masculine. Misrad HaBriut, במשרד הבריאות נרדמו. And you see here in the list, that's row 7, nildemu. Nildemu is another technically passive verb, but we usually don't translate it as passive from Hebrew to English. It's not usually considered passive. It means fell asleep. In this case, it's talking about the officials, the clerks, everyone involved in Misad Abliut, the general secretary of the teachers union, says that everyone at the health ministry has fallen asleep. Nildemu is, by the way, a great verb to use. When you say, for example, you're texting with someone and all of a sudden you fall asleep or you stop answering or something happens, the correct thing to say if you did fall asleep or you want to fake it is saying nildamti. Nildamti is the first person past tense, which simply translates as I fell asleep. In modern Hebrew, you've probably learned the verb lishon. Ani olech lishon, I'm going to sleep. Or if you wanted to conjugate that rather in the past tense, yashanti. You can use that, but everyday Hebrew, you're going to use this verb instead. So if I was taught, like often happens when I'm busy, like in the last few days, and I'm talking to someone and all of a sudden I stop because I really do fall asleep, I will text them in the morning and say, slicha nildamti. Sorry, I fell asleep. Maybe it's an insult to them, maybe it's not. I needed to sleep, right? So here they're saying that they simply fell asleep. It's not passive in its understanding, but that's just the verb itself has a passive construction. You don't need to remember that if that's too much for you. Just understand when you see the verb nirdam, as you see here, it means fell asleep or falls asleep, either way. Okay, so here they're saying the general secretary of the teachers union, they fell asleep over at the health ministry. Hanchayot lo burot lanu. So we had this word for the last few weeks, hanchayot. Hanchayot are directives. They're just short of horaot, which are instructions. Hanchayot are guidelines or advisories or instructions, but not with the weight of law behind them. Okay, so the hanchayot, the instructions, the directives, lo burot lanu, are not clear to us. Barur or barur means clear. And in this case, it's conjugated for hanchayot, which are plural feminine. So the hanchayot lo burot lanu, the directives, claim the general secretary, are not clear to us. Okay, that's the quote attributed to her. They fell asleep over at health ministry. The directives aren't clear to us. What does this mean? She's complaining about the fact that the education minister has already announced that the school year will open, but nothing has been said up until this article was published about what actually is going to happen. How is this going to work? How are we going to preserve the safety of our teachers and the students and make sure the students learn? Keep in mind, just like in America, just like in other countries, the teachers union, the minister or the secretary of education, they do not always like each other. Most of the time, they do not like each other. So understand what's happening here, that almost automatically whatever Galant, the Minister of Education, says is not what the Miskalit Histadrut HaMorim, the General Secretary of the Teachers Union, on behalf of her colleagues, okay? So there's an inherent strife between the two sides even before the plague. Now what happens is we have the plague, we have the virus, we don't know, they say the health ministry fell asleep, we have no idea what's happening, the rules aren't clear to us. Pause, that's what that dot in the middle is, pause, another part of what this article is about to say. Zeh hamitva she'itziג שר החינוך. Okay, and what I know is gonna happen when I click on this is I'm going to get this, within this article, this, zeh, means this, ha-mitva. Mitva is a very important word. It means outline or layout. You're going to see this word again and again and again when it comes to news covering the virus in Israel, because every time something new changes with the law, first it starts with a mitva. A mitva is a layout, an outline, how someone believes we're going to get through this. So for example, the mitva for restarting cultural events just got released yesterday, and it needs to be approved by the government in order to turn into a law. So if you want to imagine it on a scale, we start with a mitva, an outline, a layout, a plan, an idea. Then it moves to hanchaya, a directive, an order, an issuance. That's that word we just had, hanchaya. And then the last time when it becomes a law is hora'ah. We've had this word before. Hora'ah means an instruction. And in this case, with regards to the virus, it means an instruction that has the law behind it. Okay? So I know when I click on this, I'm going to see the mitva shehitzig ser chinuch. Mitva, the layout, the outline, how that of shehitzig, that the ser chinuch, the education minister, hitzig, showed, displayed. Okay? So I know that when I click on this, I'm going to see the mitva shehitzig ser chinuch. That I'm going to see the outline, the layout of how school is going to work. That the ser chinuch, that the minister presented. One quick thing, then I'm going to translate the TV show under, and then we're going to take you to the website. So it says something here a little different than perhaps what you're used to in modern Hebrew. Zeh hamitzvah shehitzig ser chinuch. In modern Hebrew, the word order is a little bit more fluid than in biblical Hebrew. Any of you who've read Torah, not necessarily Talmud, but any piece of Torah, any piece of Tanakh, the sentence structure is different than what we're used to in modern Hebrew. Modern Hebrew based itself a lot on Indo-European languages because when the Hebrew language had to quickly be revived, as it was being revived, they wanted to make allowances for incoming Jewish immigrants. And at that time, the vast majority of them lived in Indo-European speaking countries. And just like in English, most Indo-European languages are subject, verb, object. I talk to you, right? I am the subject, talk is the verb, to you is the object. I talk to you. In biblical Hebrew, the order is a little different. It begins with the verb, then the subject, then the object. So as you see here, now, in every once in a while, you'll see this kind of permutation, or you'll see hitzig sar chinuch mitva. Okay, presented the education minister the plan. I know in Hebrew what, which is the subject and which is the object, and in here you see a little bit of that older Hebrew. This is the plan which, as produced or as shown by the education minister. Okay, so don't be confused when you see this. Mitva it's emphasizing mitva in that this is the plan which the education minister produced. But know that actually what we speak every day as modern Hebrew is slightly different than ancient Hebrew. And that's one of the reasons, for example, any of you who read, if you can remember your bar bat mitzvah portion, if you did have a bar bat mitzvah, you remember all of those begin with Vayidaber, Vayomar, all of that. Vayomer, Vayidaber. That's this form, right? Hitzig sar chinuch. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe. Same thing. Verb, object, verb, subject, object. Same thing here. So know that both of them are acceptable in modern Hebrew, but everyday modern Hebrew, we speak just like you do in English. Subject, verb, object. Okay, stop here. I'm just going to translate this new TV show at the bottom, and then I'm going to take you to the Con website so you can get a little bit affiliated with it and navigate it on your own, and then answer your questions. So I know this is a brand new TV show. I didn't show the whole thing here, but I can go over a little bit more, and I see I can. Yeah, okay. So first off, I know it's a TV show because it's got this nice fancy banner under it. This is also where Con likes to put their TV shows to advertise. I also know it's a TV show because it says on the right side, on the left side here rather, Yemei Rishon V'Sheni, Tesha V'Reva, on Sundays and Mondays. So anything that's shown just on 2 days a week has to be some sort of show, non-news show. And it's at 9:15. So I immediately actually know, because I know a little bit of Israeli culture, this is a TV show. Why? Because the three major TV stations, Kan, Channel 12, and Channel 13 all show the nightly news at 8 o'clock. And sometimes the news broadcasts, because we're a busy country and we have a lot to say, sometimes it ends at 8:45, sometimes it ends at 9 o'clock, sometimes it ends at 9:15, sometimes it even ends later. But 9:15 is usually when the next show after the nightly news starts. Okay, so I know tonight I can tune in and watch this news show. And they even put the vowels in here for your pleasure. It's more of a stylistic thing. It's not for you, but you can believe it's for you. And it's called manayek. Now, manayek is slang, as you see here, as I wrote here. Manayek is the plural for a word that you may have heard before. You may have heard the word manayek before. It's the plural for manyak. Now, both of these words are slang. They both come from Arabic. Manyak is the singular version. Manayek is the plural. And just like it sounds a little bit to your English-speaking ears, it's related to the word maniac. And manyak can be manyak or manayak, either way. But manyak, the singular, and manayak mean a general curse. If you want to curse someone out, you can call them or a manayak. It's a general way to just talk down to someone, not patronizing. I mean, you're cursing someone when you use this. But this word is also slang in Hebrew for the police. Okay? A maniac or a maniac is someone who's filthy. They're a pervert. They're a degenerate. They're a bad person. But in Hebrew slang, it's also the police. Okay? So already I know this is a show actually about, this is a police drama show. A cop drama, if you will. So Manayak, I don't know the whole plot, I just know a little bit, and guessing that it's using slang and slang from Arabic, it has something either to do with Arabs or more likely with Mizrahim. Also, I know this because one of the actors here, his last name is Asayag, and he is originally from Morocco, and he is usually the Mizrahi protagonist in a lot of TV shows, comedy and drama. So I have a little bit of cultural insight to it, but anyways, Manayak, the new show, it started last night. It's on tonight as well at 9:15 after the news if you wanted to watch that. Okay, quickly take you through Khan's page and then just the top, and then I'm gonna answer your questions. Okay, let me just open that. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this. So, what you see here is the Khan website. Now, like I went through the top before, all of this, what I didn't show you is where you can cheat. And this is, I'm going to show you where to cheat, is where you see languages in your wonderful native English. When I click on languages, back in the day when Khan used to be Channel 1, and Israel was very, very much on the radio all the time. There was so much more radio listening than TV watching because it was cheaper to own a radio than it was to own a TV. So many more people have radio. There used to be dozens and dozens and dozens of language broadcasts in Israel, both for local consumption for all the Olim coming from around the world, but also projected out. So there still is a local broadcast in Arabic for Arab speakers in the Middle East. There is still one in Farsi, in Persian, for Iranians who can tune in. But also for a local audience, they've narrowed it down. There used to be dozens, now there's only a few. So you have English, you see here, Russian, French, Amharic, Spanish, let's see what's there, Yiddish, Ukrainian, Ladino, Georgian, okay? And if I go down, there's specific programs for each, but let's say I'm tired, I'm gonna be a bit lazy with my Hebrew, and I wanna see what's in English. If I click on the English, I'm going to get the news flash and news highlights. So they're going to be just lines. They're not going to be broadcast. And if I click here on Khan English News, I'm going to get the radio broadcast of the news, the hourly broadcast news. It's an hour-long broadcast. And as you see here from the date, it's yesterday's news. Okay, so this is further emphasis why it's important to read all this and know everything here, because the English language news is not going to be updated so frequently. But at the same time, if you want authentic news for a local audience in English, this is it. This is the best English news you're going to get from Israel for people in Israel. It's also a nice received pronunciation British accent, and he is an American. Of course, I love that accent, so it's a nice thing to listen to. But to go back, okay? Let's say I want to, if it'll let me. Okay, go back to this page. The top right, it says live. And let's say I click on live. I get many options for live. Let's go through all these together so you know actually what Khan includes and doesn't include. So Khan 11, starting from the right side, Khan 11 is the TV station. If I clicked on that, I would get a live broadcast of the TV station on my screen. This, by the way, only works if you're in Israel or your VPN is directed to Israel. So if you're outside of Israel, this isn't going to work for you unless you have a VPN activated. I'm not going to tell you how to do that because it's slightly illegal. VPN, okay? Khan 11 is the news, is TV. That's not just the news, that's all live streaming, channel 11 news, and TV rather. Chinuchit is the education channel. Like I said, it's the auxiliary channel. It's the auxiliary TV station of Khan. It has a lot of other stuff on it. It's also a great TV station to watch. A lot of quality programming on both of these, by the way. Khan Bet. Khan Bet also used to be known as Reshet Bet. This is the all talk, all news radio station. Okay, so if you wanted to get the news and talk radio, like many of us love in our respective countries of origin, this is it. This is one of many, by the way, but this is Khan's all talk radio, Khan Bet. Moving over, Khan Shmonim V'Shmone. Shmonim V'Shmone is an all music station. I'm trying to think the equivalent in America for this. This is a very, this is like college radio. For those of you who remember college radio, this is a little bit more, this is very eclectic. It's very thought out and very curated music. On the weekends, they have a like 3-5 hour block called Shishim, Shivim, Shmonim, U'Shmone. So it's the 60s, Shishim, Shivim, the 70s, Shmonim, the 80s, and the name of the radio station, because that's its frequency, is 88. So it's a play on the words, but it's the music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They have nightly jazz. They have all sorts of different niche programs. It's a very good channel, both Israeli and international music, but it's a little bit more, I guess the word is artsy, right? It's like college radio. It's a great station. Shows a little bit of my cultural tendencies. Okay, Khan Gimel, the next one. Khan Gimel is all Israeli music. It's only Israeli music. It used to have a lot more Mizrahi music. Now it's a little bit more diverse, if I'm not mistaken, but they'll have a rock show, they'll have a rap show, all sorts of different things. This is all Hebrew, only Israeli music. Khan Talbut. By the way, everything from Bet is a radio show, Shmonim V'Shmone is a radio station, Gimel is a radio station. Another radio station is Khan Talbut. Talbut means culture, and this is exactly that. This is the culture radio station. This is all about the arts, the fine arts, the performing arts, anything having to do with arts and culture. This is that channel. Again, all in Hebrew. The next one, Khan Kol HaMuzika. Kol HaMuzika literally translates kol with a kuf, means the voice, but kol with a kaf means all. So it's a little bit of a play on words. This is the classical radio station in Israel, Kol HaMuzika. So this is live performances, this is tape performances, this is classical music, okay? Next one is Khan Reka. Reka means background, or Reka, with an ayin at the end. And this is that multi-language channel that I showed you before. So this has repeating throughout the day on a loop all the different languages that I showed you before. Okay. Khan Moreshet. Moreshet means heritage. This is the Jewish radio station. So this is for a religious Jewish audience. So the content is more about philosophy, and it's meant for a religiously observant audience. It goes without saying that Khan Moreshet on Shabbat and on Chagim is silent, as opposed to all these other channels which still keep going on Shabbat, but Moreshet does not. So it's what's called a kosher station in Israel. And then the last two, as you can see from the letters, are not Hebrew. The first one is makan. Makan is Arabic for makom, or place, but it's also a play on the word kan. So you can already hear the word kan in makan. And this channel 33 is the Arab TV station. That's part of the public broadcasting. And then the next one is Radio Makan. It just says radio in Arabic. It's the Arabic language radio station. Again, both of these have existed from when the first TV station came live in Israel. Both, it was always original Arabic programming. Usually it was on the Chinuchit channel. And there was always what was called Reshet Dalet, the Dalet network, and that was the radio station that was all Arabic. You can listen to it to this day. It's a combination of talk, but also a lot of music from throughout the Middle East, as well as from Israel. Very good station if you like Arab music. Okay, this is Kan. This is a great site to understand Israeli culture, Israeli media. It's multimedia, like I said. It's TV, it's radio. As we see it at the top, it's digital. Digital meaning digital, means on demand. It's podcasts. There's a fancy word for it, but we still like podcast in Hebrew. And so, yeah, I'm going to stop here and start answering some questions because I see there's a bunch in the chat window. Okay, the website that conjugates verbs, great question. Let me just pull that up again to make sure I have the right page here. Just 1 second, here it is. Okay, the verb, the page is pe'alim.com. Okay, pe'alim.com is you plug in any verb. I think you can even do English there, but you certainly plug in any verb and you'll get its entire conjugation table. It's a great resource. I think I just saw that they have an app, so it's really good for on the go as well. Kan, okay. The URL for Kan is kan.org.il. Okay, someone else wrote up there as well, and they'll get you everything else. Can you give us the call dial numbers for each of the stations? I don't know them off the top of my head. I think also some of them change depending on where you are in the country. It's best, you can listen to all this streaming, by the way. You don't need a physical radio to listen to all of that. So like I pulled up before, you can press where it said live and just hover on any of those. You'll get the live streaming on your computer, on your phone, any of those. So I don't know them off the top of my head. The only one I know is Shmonim V'Shmonet, because it's named after its frequency, which is 88 FM. By the way, all those are FM. They're not AM. Okay. Any questions? Let me just skim through the... Any questions? The word as produced or shown. Okay. Hitzig. Okay. Hitzig. Let me write this in transliteration. Just 1 second. Oh, it's not letting me change to English. Come on. There we go. Okay, Hetzig. Hetzig is he showed, or he displayed, or he demonstrated. So in this case, we were talking about the mitzvah, the outline or the layout that the education minister showed or demonstrated or displayed. So Hetzig is he displayed, past tense. This is he displayed. The infinitive, and I'll write this in Hebrew, is lehatzig. It'll let me. Lehatzig. Okay, lehatzig is to display or to show or to demonstrate. Okay, great word to know. We use it all the time. And this is exactly that. That's what that means. Okay. Any last questions?
It's interesting that it's mazkalit.
Mm-hmm.
Because the real Hebrew is mazkira klali. Klalit, right?
No, it's not. So that's a great point. So in the way it works is the original way, it's a great question. The original way you said Secretary General as a acronym is Maskal. To make it feminine, you're right, it should be Mazkira Klalit, but to make it clear, Mazkal as a concept is more, it's easier to say, it's certainly shorter to write. So Mazkalit is clear, it's not correct Hebrew, it's not proper Hebrew, you're absolutely right in that, but that's how we conjugate it for a woman.
Okay.
Otherwise, up until a few years ago, you would still write mazkal, whether you were talking about a female or a male. In our day and age, we need to show gender diversity, so mazkalit is understood as, just like we say, by the way, for a CEO or a executive director who's a woman, we say mankalit, right? We add that it at the end, even though it is short for minahelet klali, which is different than mankalit, but that's how we do it.
Okay.
Our website was a little different at the top, even though it was on the same site. The radio stations showed a little differently on the
Okay.
website. Why? Any idea?
No idea.
I
I don't know.
didn't get the, Jay, good morning. I didn't get the translation for Shir HaChanoch, which was right after Hatzig in Khan. There was 2 words, Shir HaChanoch.
Chinuch.
No. Sar HaChinuch.
Oh, Sar HaChanot. Chanot.
Let me write that in the chat.
Toda rabah. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sar
Yeah, Ken. What is that?
Chinuch.
It's seer with a sin.
Okay. Sar is
Okay.
a minister.
I'm sorry, what?
Well, Sar is a minister.
Okay.
Nuch means education. You put the 2 words together because it's a compound word. So Sar HaChinuch is the Minister of Education.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lehavot, would I use the, is that kind of the same as lehatzig? Show somebody something?
Leharot means to show. It's slightly different, just like in English, to show versus to display, right? He's displaying the mitzvah. He's showing, in English we would say to show, right? But it's more like he's putting it on display. No one has yet seen the, up until that article, this morning, no one had seen the layout for how the school system is going to work come 1st of September. So it's not just showing it, it's demonstrating it, it's displaying it, which is lehatzig. Leharot is just to show.
Right, okay. Great, thank
So
you.
there's slight nuance in it, just like in English.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we got a couple more questions here. I said channel 13 is one of the channels in Israel. It's one of the 3 major channels, but it's a commercial station. We focused on Khan, which is public radio, public television and radio, but absolutely 13 is another channel you can watch. I don't know if you can watch it outside of Israel. If you can, great. By all means, watch TV in Hebrew. It's a great way to perfect your Hebrew. Hanchayot, yes, our guidelines or advisories, like we talked about. Vicky, tipatach instead of tiftechi. Okay, remember what I said. Shnat halimudim tipatach. Tipatach is passive. The school year will be opened on. Okay, it's referring to Shnat halimudim, which is feminine, and it will be opened, 3rd person, it will be opened is tipatach. Okay, what you wrote here, I'm assuming is tiftechi, that is you will open. Speaking to a single female. Definitely not the context we're talking about here. The school year will be opened on the 1st of September, so it needs to be the passive form, tipatach. Okay. Great. Any last questions?
Jay, this
How do you
is
spell-
incredibly amazing.
My
Jay,
pleasure. Yes.
I have a last question. It's Miri. What was the word again? After Hanchayot, the next thing was something with it was a direction with the force of law. What was that
Okay, so
called?
we've talked about this word. We've done this word multiple times. Let me write it in the chat window again. Is hora'ot. Hora'ot. Sorry, just 1 second. Hora'ot. Oh, come on. Hora'ot. Hora'ot. Sorry, just 1 second. Hora'ot. Okay, hora'ot. Hora'ot mean instructions or directions. In everyday language, it means directions. It's from the same root as morim, like we had in that subheadline. It means from teacher. It's also the same root as Torah. Torah, to instruct. That's what Torah means, instructing, the instruction. Okay, so hora'ot are instructions. Okay.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Naomi.
Hi.
My first time, sorry.
Welcome.
Hi. How would you, thank you, Baruch Hanimtzeh. How do you say superb teaching? Because hora'ah is also teaching. Would you say hora'ah me'ula or something like that?
You could say me'ula, mitsuyenet. I would say either is both, but you're absolutely right. It's feminine, so it would be me'ula, superb, mitsuyenet, excellent. Either way works.
How does that sound for the name of a business, a tutoring business?
Hora'ah mitsuyenet.
No, the other one. Hora'ah me'ula. Weird?
Catchier.
Weird? What's that?
Let's find something catchier than that. It doesn't.
I'm suffering. I'm really trying for weeks already.
Yeah, let's find something together. I can actually help you with that. That's part of my business. I do branding for agent companies, so we can.
Awesome.
How would you spell Pa'alim.com?
Pa'alim.com?
Yeah.
Just
Rule in English.
chat window, I pasted it in there. It's PEALIM.com.
Okay, the Hanhayat, is that related to what you get from the doctor? Hanhayat?
Ooh, good question. Yeah.
You get a directive from your doctor?
No, hafnaya.
Hafnaya.
Hafnaya. So no, you can already hear it's a different word. It's got a different. Hanchaya. Let me just write this one out, and then we'll up for the day. Hanchaya, and then what's going on here? Hafnaya. Okay, two different words as you see them spelled out, right? Two different words means they have two different roots, which means they have two different meanings. They are the same construct. Now that's probably, and they sound very similar, not just because they rhyme, but in grammar, for those of you who are a little bit more advanced, you know that this is the exact same form, and it means something that means it's a noun. Hafnaya, with the first word here, hafnaya in the chat window, the first word, hafnaya means a referral, and that's what you're getting from your doctor. Hanchaya is a directive.
Okay.
Okay, but you're absolutely right. They not only rhyme, but they're the exact same grammatical construct. They just mean two different things.
Hey, after you taught us Hanchayot for the first time, the next day almost I saw it in the sign in the post office.
Exactly right.
Could understand, finally I could understand what they were talking about.
Hanchayot is all the time you'll see this. Okay, everyone. Toda rabah. I hope you enjoyed. Next week, I'll see you all next week, Monday rather. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please be in touch with Nefesh B'Nefesh, and as well, Ali will send out the recording of this, if not today, then tomorrow, and we will see you all next week.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It was great.